Well, tomorrow, youth right across North America, including right here in Toronto, will be taking to the streets to March for Our Lives. It's a massive anti-gun rally. The march beginning at City Hall before heading down to Queen's Park. In attendance will be a student who lost a cousin to the violent and deadly shooting in Parkland, Florida that killed 17 people. Families of victims of gun violence will also be in attendance. A massive march taking place as well in D.C., standing in solidarity following the latest wave of gun violence in the U.S. And coming up just after 7 o'clock, we're going to be speaking with a local teen who is actually heading to D.C.
We've been talking about the March for Our Lives, created, of course, by a group of students who survived the February 14th shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida.
All our government and president can do is send thoughts
The
and prayers.
march has grown in size. Last check, about 500,000 people could descend on the National Mall in Washington. Included will be a 17-year-old grade 11 student from North Toronto Collegiate. Olivia Wright joins me right now, and you are going to be leaving this afternoon for the march in Washington.
Yeah.
How long have you been planning this?
Since the day it happened, I've been wanting to go. I know that now is the right time to do this. When Sandy Hook happened back in 2012, I was too young to really understand what was going on. Now that I'm 17, I think I can be part of this change.
Why go to Washington? You're a Canadian student. You live in a country where we do have much stronger gun control laws. Why go?
Washington is where it's going to be the biggest impact, I think. It's right outside of the White House. This is where it's going to be heard. I know that we have celebrity guests coming in to also be a part of this. So I think it's just going to be a big impact for everyone once they're there.
You're going with your mom.
Yes.
Right now, and your parents. I know your dad. He's been very supportive as well of you doing this. What about friends and that at elsewhere at school, for instance?
Yeah, friends have been super supportive about this. I think this also impacts them as well. You know, before we were born, Columbine happened 2 years before. So this just shows that it's been going on for so long. And now that this happened, Columbine is no longer considered one of the top 10 mass shootings in the States, the one school shooting that really started it all.
Your message then, what is the message you want to carry?
Enough. It has to end. It has to stop. These are children being killed at a place that is supposed to be safe. If they can't go to school and be safe, then what's the point?
What do you think about arming teachers?
I think it's ridiculous. More guns are not going to help. It is just going to make it worse.
And it's not just Washington where the march is. There are hundreds of marches around the world, including here in Toronto. We have a march tomorrow at City Hall here in Toronto. It's just one of hundreds of events that are listed around the world. So here's the poster for it. And again, the standing together with our friends south of the border as the march continues or is planned for here tomorrow at City Hall. So thank you for being here. Good luck to you and safe trip.
Thank you.
Well, tomorrow, youth right across North America, including here in Toronto, will be taking to the streets to March for Our Lives, a massive anti-gun rally. This march will begin at 10:30 at City Hall before heading down to Queen's Park. In attendance will be a student who lost a cousin to the violent and deadly shooting in Parkland, Florida that killed 17 people. Families of victims of gun violence will also be there. A massive march will be taking place in D.C. to stand in solidarity following the latest wave of gun violence in the U.S.
The call for action against gun violence is set to reach new heights. Hundreds of thousands of students are expected to take part in tomorrow's March for Our Lives. And as Tracy Potts reports, they have a direct message for President Trump.
Prepping the National Mall, making signs, signing up volunteers.
I think everybody has a responsibility to pitch in and act.
500,000 people are expected to march from the Capitol to Trump International Hotel. Students, parents, teachers, speakers, musicians rallying for change.
We're really excited for this Saturday. It's going to be incredible.
The D.C. March for Our Lives is one of more than 800 events planned worldwide Saturday, pushing for tougher gun laws.
Our blood, your hands. It's on us.
This was a preventable tragedy.
On Capitol Hill, the FBI admits they failed to adequately follow up on 2 tips about the Stoneman Douglas High School shooter.
The FBI should have and could have done more to investigate the information.
Now students are doing more, urging supporters don't just march, vote.
If we do not stand up and make our voices heard as Americans, they will not take action.
Not one more! Not one more! Action sparked by tragedy, determined to make an impact. Tracy Potts, NBC News, Washington.
Meanwhile, the Florida high school where a gunman killed 17 people last month has a new policy. Students are now required to use clear backpacks and wear ID badges at all times. The backpacks will be provided to students at no charge when they return from spring break. 19-year-old former student Nicholas Cruz is accused of carrying an assault weapon into the school and opening fire. Administrators are also deciding whether to install metal detectors at entrances to the school as well.
Hundreds of thousands of students will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow to take part in what's being called the March for Our Lives protest. Kat Shamel is a student here in Toronto, and she's on her way to Washington this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Kat, I've got to ask, why, as a Canadian, do you want to take part in this march that is for, it's really been born of an American cultural issue?
Absolutely. Well, actually, I am a dual citizen. I spent more than half my life in America. And really, this is an issue that strikes close to home. Growing up in America and going to school in America for the first, few years of my life, I was very aware of the gun violence issue. And actually, both my father and my grandfather were lifelong members of the NRA. So for me, this is a really close to home issue. The idea that children are going to school every day, scared for their lives, scared that they won't come home to their families, that really is like a human problem, not just an American problem. This should be a worldwide issue.
As part of this, there's this discussion that in a few days, or rather next month, there's a call for a student-led walkout across the United States to honor the 19th anniversary of the Columbine shooting. So when you think back, I remember where I was in my early days of law school, and I watched that from the safety of my television, to see that very little, if nothing, has changed on the front of gun violence in schools in the United States. Do you feel it's different now?
I really don't. I feel like this issue has been kind of replaying itself over and over for many, many years.
But do you feel that this march and the galvanizing of the student movement could lead to real change?
I'm really hoping so. I mean, this entire movement has stemmed from just a couple of high school students who are outcrying for help. So I think, honestly, this movement is hopefully going to change things.
Now, if somebody came to you and gave you a piece of paper and a pen and said, write down the solution that you want to see to this problem, what would you write on that piece of paper?
Well, personally, I am against people having guns. I'm against just the general public having access to them. But I know that that's not, that's just my personal take on things. And what we're asking for is not to take away people's guns. We're not asking to completely change the gun laws in America. All that we're asking for is some reform and just a little bit of more safety.
Yeah. Well, Kat, thank you so much. Congratulations on being part of this. We'll hope you document it so that we can see how it went. And watching these students take on this this project is inspirational, to say the least. So thank you for being part of it.
Thank you so much.